And get started here today. Happy April to you guys. It's April 2nd. We're going to get rolling on our Monday Allendale strategy session, and we're going to go right into the grains. We're going to turn this over to Rich, have him dissect this report that we had just gone through last Friday, and also let us talk to us about where he stands right now as far as these grains. So go ahead, Rich.
All right. So let's talk about the bullish issue for Friday's reports for corn. So we had two reports, of course, Friday. One was simply an estimate of the mid-year estimate of how much of last year's crop is still around. And that's shown by this last bar here, March 1, and it's at just over 6 billion bushels. Now keep in mind, this quarterly grain stocks report is not a supply and demand report. It's simply an update of how much corn is left over after half the year is done, from September to March 1st. And one thing we can point out here of why this is important, well, if we have, in this case, as you can tell, compared to last year, if we have 500 million bushels of corn less than last year at this point, does that mean we're going to have 500 million bushels less than last year by the end of the year? And last year was 1.1 billion bushels, right? Well, that's the key question here. How much of this 500 million bushel change will come off of this number way down here? In other words, are we going to see corn stocks drop from, 801 was USDA's last estimate? Will this drop down to 600 million bushels? That's the key question that we're trying to ask right now. And that certainly is going to be the key question of why this market will remain strong for some time for old crop corn. So main message here for old crop corn is do not be bearish on old crop corn and try and fight this market. Now, Allendale's conservative estimate, we said beforehand, was 772, which is a slight decline here, and that gives us 650. It's likely that the trade is going to try and plug in 700 or something like that in their own minds, and therefore put corn maybe up to 670, maybe 680 or so for old crop corn. So Allendale's conservative estimate, and we'll need to probably lower this here in the next couple of weeks here, is 772, which is a minimum price of 650 on the May corn. Now we talked about the trade's mind is going to say at least down to 700 million bushels, and that's going to be 670 to 680. So don't be surprised if this market wants to go to 670 or 680 on the May corn as they try and price in a lot of these questions. So a message right now is don't try and fight this old crop corn market. There's too much excitement and too many questions here to argue with right now. Now for NewCrop here. Let's talk about the things that our customers are telling us. Well, they're telling us, gosh, it's dry. And here's precip in the past 2 weeks. And we know that before back in March, first part of March, we know that we already had a lot of dry areas. And if you look at the precip the last couple of weeks, well, for actually most of our customers, it's actually dried a little more. And one thing of importance is it's also now starting to extend not just in northwest Iowa, it's also extending now into this southeast, South Dakota, and eastern Nebraska as well. And if you look at an updated, this is a soil moisture map, this shows us now. We're actually getting some soil moisture issues now reaching into northeast Nebraska. And also, we've also widened out the dry area for soil moisture here in this western Illinois region. So our message is, in our customers' mindset and also in the trade's mindset, things have gotten worse on the moisture issue. And if you look at the short-term forecast, let's look at the 6 to 10-day forecast. Well, here's the precip portion over the 6 to 10 day. Well, it's going to see no change for this whole area. In fact, for most of Iowa, most of Nebraska, and all of the eastern Corn Belt, it's going to dry. So in the trade's mindset, we had problems with soil moisture before, and it's going to get worse. That's the bullish issue in the trade's mindset right now. So dry soil conditions is going to be something that all of our customers will tell us about. Now let's see if this is actually something which matters here, and if this is going to be a big issue that will affect long-term pricing. Here's the updated NOAA, the government's forecast. These are temperature forecasts for the month of April. And this is actually updated March 31st, updated just this weekend. So above normal temps are still lined up for everybody in the entire Corn Belt. So it's going to stay hot. or I should say it's going to return to hot for this month, for the average. But precip portion, well, we actually have most of these guys going to get normal precip. And in fact, the eastern corn belt might be a little above normal precip. So our message here is it's going to get worse in terms of soil moisture, and our customers telling us it's dry into next week, through all of next week. The government says, though, so when you look at the average for the month of April, that the second half of April is going to show a difference. It's going to show some moisture returning. Now let's look at something here as far as this issue for corn planting. So the Reuters took a Newswire poll here of 12 analysts, including Allendale, and they said if USDA does come out with a number for corn planting today, what would it be? And this is as of yesterday, April 1st. Well, 5% was what the average trade was discussing, and Allendale put a 3% number. That was our number here. As you can tell, heck, we don't even usually start until a week and a half or so from now, or when we don't even usually start seeing a nationwide corn planting reported. Now let's look at our little 5% number here compared to the maximum of all years. In fact, this is going back to 20 years. Well, we've only actually had one other report, only one other year where we actually had an April 1st number, and that was just 1%. So we're going to have record planting is what we're going to start. And based on the forecast, I just threw some numbers together, what we expect. Here's numbers that I expect here over the next 4 weeks from here on out. And as you can tell, we're going to beat the record, which is this gray line right here. Pretty much we're going to be a brand new record as far as early planting this year. Yes, Brian.
Yeah, the crop turned out that 1 year.
And Brian will ask, well, how about the crop when it started? Actually, this is, I believe, 2001 up until, I believe, around the second or third weekend. 2001 had some problems as far as a little later planting. But for this 2001, this was one of those years where we pointed out last week, which was like 10 bushels above trend. And I believe, I forgot when the other year was that picked up after this point here. But the message, as we said before, is early planting. 2 out of the 4 years of record early plantings meant far, far beating trend type yields, 10 bushels above trend. Now, once we get the crop planted, what's going to happen here? Here's the NOAA. This is their updated forecast for May through July temperatures, normal temperatures for the Corn Belt. And this gets us through pollination. And here's precip, normal precip for the entire Corn Belt. So let's look at the big picture right now. Well, we just got a bullish quarterly stocks report. Many analysts are going to say we should lower USDA's old crop stocks from 801. They're going to say down to 700, even some down to, Rich Feltz even mentioned 650. So in the trade's mindset, May corn needs to go to 670 to 680. Also bullish, we talked about, well, things are dry right now. They're actually going to get drier through next week. That's also bullish. And that's maybe, you can't argue that December corn's rallying on that issue, but just keep in mind that's the trade's mindset of what they're seeing here. But once we do get the crop planted, and it will get in, and it will get in very quickly, as we talked about what these 2 slides, wow, you've got very great conditions, normal precip or normal temps, and normal precip lined up. So we're still saying in the big picture, if this forecast holds, we're going to have tremendous yields lined up in front of us here. And our bias is still above normal trend yields. But that's not for the very near term. The very near term, the trade has its eye on those 2 other issues here. Full crop stocks and also the fact that it's still dry right now in the big picture here. So in our mindset, almost ideal new crop picture. It's going to be dry so we can plant a lot of acres, plant them quickly, but we're going to get the precip when we need it. And that's if this holds.
Is there an upside target on this one?
And Dan asked, well, how about an upside target for December corn? December corn, if all this stuff happens like we're talking about, there's no upside target. We're way overpriced. And here's the numbers right here. If we get these numbers planted and we get this type of 1.7 billion bushel ending stock, you're actually going to see futures, December futures at 380. So the new crop picture has actually worsened in its bearishness due to all those extra acres. Yes, Brian.
So to help that, for Dan's question, if the old crop is going to go up to that 670 to 680 area, That's maybe another 10, 15 cents above where it's trading right now. We could expect NewCrop to ride along for maybe a third to a half of that based on spreading. So you say maybe 5.55 would be a good sell?
I think that's it exactly. So Brian asked how much this NewCrop is going to gain. So if we have 15 to 20 cents of old crop move up at least, you know, obviously I think that's exactly right. So today's December corn, 5.45, certainly 5.50 on up, wrap up any extra sales for corn. So don't fight the trend for old crop corn, but certainly for new crop, we strongly encourage guys to take advantage of this here and get some solid work done on new crop hedges here. Now let's go through something that all of us need to recognize as far as something that Friday's report told us. And let's actually get to, let's cover this old crop issue here first. Over on beans, as far as old crop, here's a chart showing what it costs to get U.S. soybeans versus Brazil soybeans over to China. Who's cheaper? And Courtney asked me this. We talk about this every so often. And here's the red line. This is U.S. soybeans. We are cheaper, as it shows right here. We're the red line. We're cheaper than Brazil by a good $10 to $15 per metric ton. This includes buying soybeans at each port and also shipping over as well. Now it's different though. Look at this one here from last year. Here's mid-March of last year. U.S. soybeans were higher by anywhere from $10 to $20 per ton. So we want to point out this is different than last year. We shouldn't be doing this here at mid-March. In fact, at the end of March, we shouldn't be higher. We shouldn't be cheaper. We should be higher than Brazil. So we do have to point out for the short term, this is something which we got to pay attention to this very closely here. We're going to get some extra soybean sales off of this because we shouldn't be cheaper than Brazil right now. So for the short term, old crop soybeans are looking at this issue here. Number one, we will see USDA revise their numbers down for Brazil soybean crop. USDA was 68.5. It probably is giving maybe 67. And number two, because we're still cheaper, we actually are getting some of these old crop buys. It's not a lot, but we are getting some extra buys. So for the short term, yes, there is reason for old crop beans to rally. But we're still overpriced. So in the short-term mindset, kind of like that corn we talked about, this market still has to price in its perception of two exciting facts for the short term for soybeans. Now we know from our work from long-term stuff that this is still overpriced. But for the short term, we have just a little bit more to go here. Now let's talk about the long-term issue here for new crop. And let's transition to something important which we've got to point out for acreage. I've laid out here 3 slides showing the plantings report and also the March 1 stocks. And I just want to show you guys how important this Allendale acreage survey is and how accurate it is, more importantly. Of the 25 analysts who put out numbers for corn, Allendale was the 8th closest for corn. And for March 1 stocks, as far as this goes, we're the 5th closest out of 18. Now let's look at soybeans. Soybeans, we're the 2nd closest out of 25 people. This is all of our acreage survey right here. And we were actually number 1 as far as our stocks. For wheat, we were the 2nd closest for wheat acreage and the 2nd closest for stocks. Now, once you average up the ranking of all these analysts here, if you add up corn, soybeans, and wheat and make an average ranking, we are tied with number 1 as far as accuracy on the acreage report. I got to point out to you guys, and we're not trying to toot our own horn, but maybe we should, guys. And also, this should drive home the point that doing these surveys, doing all this very hard work you guys do, and spending that time on the phone really pays off. And just as a side effect, as another side here, we're also the largest average guy on the March 1 stocks as well. If you guys want to see the numbers or see the work, I'd be happy to show this out to you here. But the main message here is acreage survey, it works, works, works. Now let's get to new crop soybeans. We have some issues with new crop soybeans. Number 1, we're going to have an early corn planting. And number 2, at the same time, we've got this whole issue as far as revenue. Who's going to win? Early planting, meaning more corn acres or less corn acres? And the other issue here is with the soybeans. Are we actually going to see corn acres go to soybeans? here's what the changes would be as far as extra soybean acres between March and June in the past. And let's line this up with years that had an early corn planting. In other words, there's a lot of years where we can get big acres going to soybeans, right? But during years of corn planting, where we have an early corn planting, here's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not going to be much to shift into soybeans. And we can here's how the numbers would react. Well, we do have 2 years of up, maybe 800,000 bushel change. Actually, 2 years of down as far as in soybeans. You're not going to see a shift of 1 million acres or 2 million acres out of corn into soybeans. Numbers are actually mixed. Allendale does expect an acreage swing, but in our opinion, maybe 500,000 acres or something like that shifting over to soybeans here. Because in early corn years, guys still want to plant corn. Now here's the trade's mindset. I've got a bunch of numbers laid out here, but like we put on Friday afternoon's report, here's a column right here on the right-hand side saying potential USDA 2012. We kept all of USDA's February numbers the same, except just threw in these lower soybean acres, which they gave us here. And as you can tell, this drops these numbers down for ending stocks down to 159, stocks to use down to 4.8. And these are tighter than at any point in the past 3 years here. So in the trade's mindset, without doing any soybean acres adjustments, we will have the tightest soybean supply in 4 years on the new crop. That's why this new crop soybean is rallying hard. And that's why we can easily see this market, as we're still trying to price this in, we're going to easily pass $14 on the no soybean contract. In the big picture, do these numbers actually change anything here? Well, in the big picture, you probably will scale back some of these demand numbers a little bit here or add some acres back in. But that won't happen for 2 more months. It's not going to be a discussion that the market price is in for right now. So for right now, as far as new crop November, $14 is an easy minimum upside target, likely going a little higher, maybe 14.25. When it's all said and done, at the best, maybe 13.5 is all we can justify based on fundamentals. And using our numbers, 1280. So main message here with the soybean issue. Old crop and new crop both have bullish issues, which they're still trying to price in. And we still have a little further legs higher to go for both old and new crop soybeans. In the big picture, these will be things to sell once we try to complete this upside move for the short term. Brian.
At what point do we start talking how many acres this might be buying in South America when they start doing their estimates?
What do you mean as far as how many acres will we be buying here?
So on South America's next crop, at what point, and that's down the road, but when exactly is that when we start looking at acreage, the battle for acres in South America?
Probably maybe August or so.
Okay.
So Brian had asked, how about this new crop, how about when South America goes back to planting again in the fall? Will the soybean price bring in extra acres? And they certainly will. That certainly will be an issue, maybe not until August, though, or so here. So for right now, the short-term issue here is old crop soybeans have a little exciting news. New crop soybeans here with these lower acres, like I said, maybe that's also strong for the short-term issue as well on soybeans. Let's go over to wheat real quick here, wrap up this end here as far as the grain talk. For wheat right now, keep in mind we will have our very first estimate for winter wheat gradings this afternoon. And we dropped off at 55% at the end of winter as far as this year's. And numbers right now, they're talking maybe 60% or over, good to excellent. So winter wheat might slow down its gains, might not be able to hold up with corn anymore because of this very, very good crop that looks in front of us here.
All right, Rich. Thanks for that. There's a lot of information there on the grains.